I will try to do my best to present to you the autumn package. I hope, obviously, I will be rather short in my presentation, but I hope I will encourage you to give it a look and give it a read, because it contains a lot of, I think, important elements, and it provides sort of this way forward in the view of the Commission. What are the priorities that us and the member states should be focusing on in the sort of economic policy dimension in the next 12 months. I just wanted, this is going straight into the numbers, but it's just to kind of tell you where we are in terms of the economic situation. And I think here, the important things to stress is that we are actually economically, the recovery has started, and it's quite a solid economic recovery. Thanks to the coordinated policy action by the member states and also at the EU level, the impact from the crisis has been much cushioned. So, contrary to the earlier expectations, the impact on the workers and the firms in the EU has been much better than expected. And I will not mention all the initiatives, but just to name a few, is the vaccination campaign. So here, the development, procurement, but also importantly, the coordinated distribution of the vaccines across Europe that really did make a difference. The second thing is that was a sort of a short-term instrument called SURE, which is basically short-term work schemes cushioning the impact on the workers during the crisis. And finally, the one that I will focus to a larger extent in this presentation is the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which is really the unprecedented mobilization of funds at the EU level, providing over 700 billion to the member states in forms of grants and loans until 2026. And as the name of the instrument suggests, recovery and resilience. So it's not only about recovering from the sort of immediate effects of the crisis, but it's also about building the resilience. And I think here it's very much, this sort of term that has been coined, building better. And I think that's important to underline, and this is very much in line of the sustainable development policy agenda, and very much in line with also sustainable development goals, which I will discuss a little bit in more detail. But here, so this is just a quick slide to demonstrate sort of the key messages from the autumn forecast by the Commission. And here's just to say that while they are let's say strong reasons for optimism in terms of the economic growth, they are significant risks also on the downside, and notably related to the development of the pandemic. So this is definitely not the time to sort of relax and say all is going well, but in a way that provides an important context in which the autumn package has been adopted. What does this autumn package contains? It has those three elements. So on the one hand, there is 4 documents under economic and employment policy coordination. There is also several opinions on draft budgetary plans of member states in the fiscal coordination. And then there is also several documents under post-program surveillance and enhanced surveillance. I'm going to mostly focus on the left-hand side, and even more so, the main document that I would like to present to you and summarize, let's say, the main messages would be the annual Sustainable Growth Survey. So here, sort of key messages that I would like you to retain is that in this annual, the one message is that we are basically moving in terms of just a policy shift from crisis management, which is the mode in which we have operated last year, to sustainable recovery. And when Commission says sustainable recovery, what we mean is what we call the 4 dimensions of competitive sustainability. And these are the 4 dimensions which have been sort of developed and coined by this new college of commissioners, a new commission, and they are very much in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. The Recovery and Resilience Facility, which I have mentioned, will be really the key instrument for the implementation of the policy agenda. I mean, as I mentioned, this facility will be there until 2026, and we have agreed with majority of the member states by now the so-called recovery and resilience plans, which are, I must say, a very ambitious. In most cases, not in all, but we've tried our best. It's a mix. What is a novelty here is, unlike other EU programs, here it's not only about investment, but it's also about reforms, and really having this sort of comprehensive set of policy commitments for the reforms and for the investments over the medium term. And finally, the one of the messages of this annual Sustainable Growth Survey is also, giving some insights in the next steps under the European semester. It's a process of economic and employment policies coordination in the EU, and here we are basically announcing that we are going to come back to the more regular semester with the publication of the country reports and the country-specific recommendations, where the Commission, and then it's approved by the Council, recommend to the member states certain reforms, investments, measures that should be taken to let's say, for sustainable growth down the line. Here, I will zoom in a little bit into what are these 4 dimensions of competitive sustainability. You have them listed on the slide, and it's the environmental sustainability, productivity, macroeconomic stability, and fairness. A bit like with the Sustainable Development Goals, it's clear that on the one hand, these 4 dimensions, they are very closely integrated, mutually reinforcing, but there also may be some trade-offs between some of them that need to be carefully considered. This year, in the annual Sustainable Growth Survey, we are really reinforcing the message that these are very much, this close integration between these 4 areas, and that to the extent possible, we should what we mean by sustainable growth and policies towards achieving that, very much they should take into account these 4 dimensions. One example that I can give, and you have some examples also on the slides, is, for example, the link between the environmental sustainability and fairness. So in the context of green transition, we are also very much insisting on ensuring fairness and not leaving nobody behind. So there is also the fund, the fund that has been created to cater to sort of social needs arising from the green transition. And here it's a bit of a snapshot for your information, for those that are maybe not as familiar with the content of the recovery and resilience plans. So again, snapshot across the 4 dimensions and across all the plans that have been adopted so far. So here you can see the amounts committed, roughly committed to each of these areas, and some examples of reforms and investments that fall, let's say, the most typical ones that fall under these categories. I think no need to go here in great details, and this is to give you a little bit of an idea of of the European semester, so the announcements that we are making on how this is going to look like next year. What I would like to stress on this slide is that, just to give you a bit of an idea how this is going to link with the recovery and resilience plans, because I mentioned earlier that this will be our main tool for implementation, for delivering on the policy commitments by the member states. There are, however, still some outstanding challenges that either were not addressed by the plans for various reasons, or additional challenges that either have emerged as a result of the crisis, or where the level of ambition of various Commission initiatives have increased. And here, for example, I can just give a couple. One is the Fit for 55 package. Another one is also Digital Decade, where let's say the bar has shifted higher, and we would be also asking the member states for higher commitments in those areas. An important maybe element to note also in this setting is that there's a commitment for further integration of the Sustainable Development Goals in the various deliverables of the European semester. So most notably in the country reports, when we will give this kind of holistic view assessment of the situation of each of the member states. And here, very briefly, it's a couple of words on the three other documents that form part of the package. The first one is the Alert Mechanism report, which is sort of a starting point, a kickoff document under the macroeconomic imbalances procedure. And here we are also announcing which member states will be subject to in-depth reviews. These in-depth reviews will be published together with the country reports and the country-specific recommendations in May. The report contains important sort of assessment of where we are in terms of the adjustment of the various macroeconomic imbalances. Which I would say it's an interesting read by itself. The main message here is that the crisis has stalled the efforts by many member states in addressing these imbalances. This is on the euro area recommendation, so it's another document in the package. Here, it's actually 5 recommendations, to be more specific, addressed to the euro area member states, where let's say, to address various impediments related to fiscal, financial, and structural and institutional issues. This year, the message of the overall package, as I mentioned earlier, is this shift from the sort of dealing with the immediate crisis to sustainable recovery, and here in particular, when it comes to various support mechanisms to companies and so on, there is this shift to say more targeted support rather than across the board support. There are also some important messages on the labor market, which actually takes me to the last document that I wanted to focus on, and this is the Joint Employment Reform Report. Again, I would say a rich material. I would highly encourage you to have a look. There are some important. It's an annual report that gives a very comprehensive view on the employment and social situation in the Union. But here there are some important novelties. One of them is operationalization of the European Pillar of Social Rights, and exactly how the monitoring of these principles will take place. And there is also integration in this monitoring of the revised social scoreboard, and also of the new headline targets on job skills and poverty reduction. So I think quite an interesting read by itself. This is just a snapshot of these 3 new targets. So you have an idea of what they are and what are the levels that we would like to achieve by 2030. The important message here is that skills, in our view, are really critical link between the labor market and facilitating the transitions, the green and digital transformations of our economies. I will not go into details of the slide, but here you have some interesting statistics of where we are. And I think that should be it from my side. Yes, indeed. Thank you very much for your attention.